The man who touched the sky. In the early hours of March 25, 1999, the wind howled through the sheer, jagged cliffs of Yosemite National Park. The first hints of dawn crept over the horizon, painting the granite face of El Capitan with shades of cold silver. Beneath its towering presence, a man sat cross-legged on a patch of frozen earth, staring up at the monolith that had both defined and threatened his life. His name was Alex Hensley, a climber who had spent 20 years chasing the impossible. He was not famous, nor wealthy, nor someone who cared for the accolades of the world. But in the climbing community, his name was whispered with awe. Alex was the man who didn't just climb walls, he danced with them. But for 2 years, Alex had disappeared from the cliffs. After a fall that nearly claimed his life, he vanished into the wilderness, retreating from the sport and the life he loved. Until now, El Capitan, the crown jewel of Yosemite, stood before him. Its 3,000-foot vertical wall had humbled even the most seasoned climbers. But Alex wasn't planning to simply climb it. He was planning something unheard of. He would free solo it. No ropes, no safety gear, nothing but his hands, his feet, and the silent determination that had always burned inside him. As the first light bathed the granite, Alex began to climb. The rock was cold beneath his fingers, rough and unyielding. Every movement had to be precise, deliberate. A single misstep meant death. The first 500 feet passed in a blur of focus. The familiar rhythm of climbing returned to him, the subtle shifts of weight, the delicate balance between strength and trust. His fingers sought the tiniest holds, his toes pressed into crevices barely wide enough for a coin. But then came the bolder problem. It was a section of the route that climbers spoke of with dread, a nearly featureless stretch of rock, requiring a leap of faith across an impossible gap. For those with ropes, it was a challenge. For Alex, it was a reckoning. He paused, his chest rising and falling as he stared at the blank expanse before him. The wind whispered through the canyon, carrying with it the ghosts of every climber who had tried and failed. Alex closed his eyes. He thought of the fall that had nearly ended him, how his grip had failed, how he had plummeted 60 feet before the rope caught him. He thought of the months he had spent in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he would ever climb again. And then he thought of why he had come back. It wasn't for the thrill or the challenge. It wasn't even for the mountain itself. It was for the silence, the purity, the fleeting, fragile moment where the world melted away, and there was nothing but the climb. He opened his eyes. And then he leapt. For a heartbeat, he was weightless, suspended between life and death. His hand shot out, grasping for the tiny ledge he had seen 100 times in his mind. His fingers scraped against the rock. And held. A rush of air escaped his lungs as he clung to the hold, his body pressed flat against the granite. He didn't move for what felt like an eternity, letting the adrenaline ebb, letting his heart slow. The rest of the climb was no less treacherous, but Alex felt something shift within him. Each move carried him closer to the summit, closer to the sky. As the sun began its descent, casting the valley in hues of gold and amber, Alex pulled himself over the final ledge. For a moment, he lay on his back, staring up at the endless expanse of sky above him. He had done it. But there was no crowd to cheer him, no cameras to capture the moment. There was only the wind, the mountain, and the quiet hum of his own heartbeat. Alex stood, his body aching but his spirit alive in a way it hadn't been for years. He gazed out over the valley, a sea of trees stretching to the horizon. It wasn't victory he felt, nor triumph. It was peace. In the years to come, Alex's climb would become legend. Some called him reckless, others a genius. But for Alex, it had never been about proving anything to anyone. It was about the climb. The silence. The sky.